So we're here at the instrument cluster, and you'll notice that we have a smart steering wheel, as they call it. You've got your control buttons on the left, and you've got some control buttons on the right. You have phone, answer, hang up, volume, up, down. And then here you have some menu buttons that will control the display here in the instrument cluster. So let's go ahead and turn the vehicle on. Here's the key fob. Kind of disappointing that it doesn't have a Mercedes logo. Instead, it's Sprinter. This is the only Sprinter logoed item in the entire Airstream Interstate, which again is kind of disappointing. It would have been nice if there was a custom Mercedes or Airstream key fob. I actually just noticed for the first time this red area, and I have no idea what that is. I don't know if it's an infrared, not certain. In order to get in the vehicle, you can simply lock or unlock, or you can use the key by pushing the button. It's a little switchblade action, and then you've got the key. And now that I think of it, I'm wondering if this doesn't have to do with the security as it enters the ignition. That might be what it is. So, I've got 1,932 miles on thus far. The first item that I don't like is that you'll notice down here we're at 0 miles per hour. So this will display the speed to which you're driving. It would have made more sense to me. You see how the digital instrument display is segmented into two sections. You have this much taller, larger section, and then the smaller portion below. Let me turn the key back on. So as you're driving, these remain exactly as you see them. It would have made more sense to have the larger speedometer up here on the top. It almost acts as like a heads-up display. It's just much easier to view your speed, to see how quickly you're going, instead of coming over here and deciphering your speed on the analog gauge. So that's my first disappointment. My second frustration with the instrument cluster is that the Sprinter chassis provides the exterior temperature. Unfortunately, you can't display your speed and temperature at the same time. So I would have preferred where it says 0 miles per hour, your temperature to always display there, and then this information to be replaced with your current speed. But unfortunately, you can't do that. So in order to go through and actually find out what temperature it is, let's say you're out at a campground and you'd like to know the outside temperature to figure out what to put on, or you're just curious what the temperature is, you've got to use these smart control buttons to change the display. Now, the frustrating part about it is that it has taken me, and I still don't 100% know how to use these to their full extent without some level of just randomly navigating around. But you can tell that this button and this button, this is showing a forwards, or you can assume because the page that has lines on it is ahead of the blank one, that pushing this will advance you forward. The assumption here is that this will advance you backwards. And then what I've learned is that once you're in a menu, which these are menu buttons, then this will advance you up and down within that menu. So I'm going to push this menu forward, and what that's going to change should be the top box. So I just pushed back, and you'll see the forward menu button takes me to the next menu. To go back takes me back. So let's keep going forward and see what we have. No messages, so no oil or anything needs changed. Back to the odometer. After start, this will give us more information on average miles per hour and miles per gallon. And then settings. To reset, press the 0 button for 3 seconds, which you could rack your brain trying to figure out where's the 0 button, because you're thinking here, where is there a 0 button here? Is a 0 button over here? No, the 0 button is hidden down here. There's a 0, and then there's a button here that has 2 little dots on it, and a plus and a minus. So don't forget about those. So coming back to trying to get into this menu, now let's try to push the up and down arrow and see if we can get into that. All right, so now we're into settings, instrument, cluster, clock, date, lighting, vehicle. If I push, and this is where it starts getting hazy. So I just push down. Let's push up again. All right, that gets us back in. If I push, let's see, that's got plus and minus. So let's see what happens if I use this plus and minus. Nothing. It does absolutely nothing. So again, very confusing. So that plus and minus do nothing. Let's try this plus and minus. So I'm going to try plus. All right, that moves us up. So at least that one works. All right, I'm still going down. Convenience. All right, instrument cluster. So I want instrument cluster. How can I select instrument cluster? So my options are menu forward, menu back, up and down. So this is where it starts getting a little hazy and very confusing. So if I push menu forward, then I'm right back to my menus. Okay, so it's not that one. All right, so we want settings. I'm gonna push the up button. All right, so we're there. Now I need to use the plus and minus on the steering wheel to control up and down. I want to control the instrument cluster. So at this point, I'm gonna try the up button. Okay, and we're in. So now we're selecting our temperature, digital speedometer. So this is setting how it's measured. All right, so select display. So now it's referring to this section down here. Do I want to show the speed or the outside temperature? So now plus and minus, I can use those on the steering wheel and select. So my gripe with this, besides not being able to display both of these at the same time, which I think is ridiculous, and the miles per hour, the speed should be up top where it's nice and big and easy to read, is there's nothing that tells you very clearly what button is select. This round section that you would naturally want to hit to select does not select any. This is not a button. At the same time, this round button is not a button. So I want to change to outside temperature. So let's hit the negative button on the steering wheel. You can see we're 53 degrees. And if I hit the arrow up button, because I don't want to get back into the main menus, then that takes me to the original menu that I'm currently in. If I hit up again, it just cycles through all of those menu options. If I hit the menu forward or menu back buttons, it's going to take me to that main cycle of, let's see, we've got 4. We've got no messages, 1. We've got that, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's 4 options when you hit menu forward and back. And then once you're in, or once you find the one you want, hit the up or down button, and it's going to cycle you through. So now I want to get rid of the temperature. I want to go back to the speedometer. So we need to find the display, speed, and then we can simply exit by hitting our menu forward and back button, and we'll go back to that. So again, my biggest complaints with this are just usability. It's not simple and straightforward. It's not very intuitive trying to use your steering wheel controls to go through the menu options here. And it makes no sense to me that we have our odometer so large when it could be small and lower. This is not nearly as important as my speed or temperature information. My next complaint about the Airstream Interstate is the dash cover that they put on top of the stock Sprinter plastic dash. It does add to the overall look of the Sprinter. Now in 2017, Airstream started using the same color dash cover. The 2016s and prior, this color changed depending on the interior package that you selected. So here you're going to see the Beechwood cabinet color that's new for 2017 does not match the dash color at all. If you select the Colombian walnut cabinet wood, that's more of a red, deep red wood. Again, this color never changes. In 2016 it did, to match your cabinetry color. So with that said, I don't have a problem with that. I actually like the consistency of the color overall. My concern is that it's just a thin, inexpensive film, and it's kind of hard to see, but I can get my finger up under there. This is where a button would have been if there were an option on the Sprinter chassis. It's relatively stuck down around here, but if you can see, when I push that, it's not secured all the way down onto the actual dash below it. And you'll see how it moves. And look, you can hear it. So there's space back there where this was not properly secured. Look, and I can pull this. Look at that. So not high quality installation. This is a thin applique for a very expensive van. Very disappointed in the quality of that. The look is fantastic, but the quality of install and product is not. My next complaint about the Airstream Interstate Grand Tour is here on both the driver's side and the passenger side. You have these grab bars, which are great, and they ease you in entering and exiting the vehicle. The problem, however, is that every time you slam the door, these little screw covers become loose. And what eventually happens is that they pop out. And when you least realize that you've lost one, you've got a bare exposed screw. So fortunately, I did not realize it initially, but my passenger side had one missing. Eventually, the second one fell out, and my dealer located out of state was able to order these and ship them to me. The recommendation is to apply some silicone to these plastic caps, some sort of glue, and then reinsert them to keep them in. But they wiggle loose way too easily upon closing and every time you slam the door. My next complaint about the Airstream Interstate is the beautiful Oyster Ultra Leather seating. The Ultra Leather is very durable and easy to clean. However, because the oyster color is so light, color transfer is definitely something to be concerned about. And by color transfer, I refer to any colors and any fabrics that could easily bleed through and transfer over to the Ultra Leather material. For example, there was a pair of blue jeans that the color transferred over to the Ultra Leather, as well as a new blue sweater that was a deep blue, but I think because it was a new sweater, had not been washed, left on the seat just one night, the blue transferred over to the Ultra Leather. Now, fortunately, we can't really see. It was down in this area, and after some diligent rubbing and scrubbing and blotting with 409, I read the owner's manual for the Ultra Leather, and the recommendations were some isopropyl alcohol, some 409, a combination of all of that, and some light blotting and scrubbing, fortunately removed the color bleed. I've been following Tesla, and I know Tesla has a white interior. I don't know if it's a genuine leather material or if it's a white ultra leather, but Elon Musk discusses the ease of cleaning the material and that it's the most durable interior that they have, which a lot of people think is contradictory when you think of a white interior and being easy to keep clean. I'm assuming it's an ultra leather, and again, this proves that it is relatively easy. It took a while. I mean, 30, 45 minutes of wiping and scrubbing softly to get the blue out, because it was quite blue on the ultra leather. So something to keep a lookout for is color bleed on the ultra leather seating. So prior to purchasing my Airstream Interstate Grand Tour EXT, I rented one and took it on a camping trip. And the one that I rented was a couple of years old, and I noticed that the sink faucet, if you see here where the hot and cold indicator is, this is just a little white piece of plastic that with very little effort pops right out. So this is very similar to the little plastic pieces at the driver's side and passenger side door handle, almost constructed very similar. And the issue is that in the one I rented, this was completely missing and gone. So then what you're left with is just a hole, a very rough hole on the area that you grab onto to turn your faucet in the galley on and off. And actually, it unscrews with very little effort. So this is definitely a pet peeve that, given the frequency of use of this little faucet right here and constantly turning left and right, it eventually becomes loose. Now at this point, this as well could use some sort of glue to turn it, or to keep it secure. And I actually am not sure which way to put that back in, which is hot and which is cold. I don't know if up top here is hot. I think that's what it is. So hot is up top. Let's see. So let me try to turn this the right way. I think it should go in about like that. So the problem is, though, you see how easily this turns every time you start grabbing this, because this is not but a stubby little 1-inch tall handle that this starts rotating all around. So it needs something to keep it in. The other thing to always be cautious with is that if you go to stow the faucet and this closes, and this happened to me on the unit I rented, when this closes, it pushes on this, and as the glass lid is closing, it opens the valve and turns it down this way. So you have an open valve, you don't necessarily hear it, and the next thing you know, your system is flooded and your floors are flooding because the faucet was on. This is probably the worst design out of any RV sink that I've seen. There are some that have a much nicer, albeit plastic, so that's the downside, faucet that simply lifts up and folds back down. And same thing with the actual faucet mechanism here. It's an up and down, whereas this is actually a left or a right and a left and an up and down and all over the place. So I appreciate that Airstream uses a nice metal faucet, and this is metal. This little inch piece is also metal, but you have to be cautious not to keep that in the up position and close the glass, because you can see just a little bit it pushed it. Let's do that again. So you can see how it's pretty tight right here. I go to close the lid, and now it's separated just enough that the water would run just enough to flood your system. So always keep this down and keep an eye on not losing that white piece. All right, the next thing that I don't like about the Airstream Interstate is that the DVD player is not wireless. And what I mean by wireless is that there is no wireless internet network connection available. It's all intended to be hardwired. Right now, the DVD player is hardwired into the HDMI splitter, which we see up here, and this splitter splits the DVD signal between the two TVs in the coach. That's fine, but when I bring my Wi-Fi hotspot, this is a smart DVD player by Samsung, so there are apps on the DVD player, Netflix, YouTube, Amazon On Demand, that would allow me to stream videos and movies if I had an internet connection. But since this is not Wi-Fi enabled, it is strictly only hardwired, I can't do that. That was a major oversight with the selection of the Blu-ray player in the Airstream Interstate. The next item about the Airstream Interstate that really drives me insane is that we've got fantastic reception and high definition at that, using the integrated antenna booster built into the storage cabinet above the driver and passenger side cab. And you simply turn it on and off whenever you need it. There's a button, and right now that green light indicates that it's on. So I've got great high definition signal. The issue is that when we go and turn the fan on in the wet bath, and I've got my fan pushed up for open, here's closed, so we want to open it and turn it on. We start suffering from interference. And this is just one channel. Usually what happens as you're camping, the interference makes the television unwatchable. So we'll go back and turn the exhaust fan off. And you'll see the pictures right back to normal. Great, clear, high definition. So where this becomes a concern is that after you take a shower, let's say in the evening, or whenever it may be, I leave the fan on to continue to exhaust all of the moisture out of the bathroom. Well, naturally at that point in the day, I want to be able to watch TV. Well, it's extremely important to control humidity and moisture in the RV, so the fan needs to be on. So when the fan is on, the TV oftentimes on many channels becomes completely unbearable to watch, so then this gets shut off and it becomes pointless. While we're here, let's go ahead and see what happens if we take our vent fan here and turn it on and see if we get the same interference. So that's running, and our television is still clear. Now, I haven't looked on top of the roof. I believe part of what's happening is that the television booster is located near the motor of the bath exhaust, and so there's electrical interference taking place. That's my hypothesis. I'm not 100% certain. I'm glad that this works and does not interfere with the television. So the concern is, for me, if this produces less interference and I keep the vent fan in the wet bath off but keep the vent open, the air is being pulled from that vent fan through the wet bath where all the moisture is out into the RV and then sucked up through here. And when that happens, you'll find that the ceiling collects a lot of the moisture. The aluminum panels here collects moisture. So again, you've got a ton of moisture being pulled through the RV, which is why I prefer to usually after a shower, keep that door closed, keep the vent fan inside open and on, and that completely disrupts the television watching. So I've been asked before about the refrigerator doors. Do they swing open while driving when they're packed with food? And fortunately, to date, I have not had either of them open, and they've been full of heavy glass bottles, gallons of milk, and the locking mechanism on them does a very good job of keeping the doors closed. So what happens is that you can see here, it's all just plastic, which is a bit scary because of long-term durability. I would think they would be easily replaceable with the 2 screws. But you can see here it acts as a latch, which connects on this top on this piece of plastic, as it closes, it's kind of hard to see in there. But what's happening is that these two holes are sliding behind this piece of plastic and latching behind this. So that's what's keeping it closed. So when you open it, you have to push to the left, and by doing so, you'll see it moves this away from the latch so that you can pull it open. Now that's a tad bit scary because, again, we're putting pressure on this plastic point on the top and the bottom. And if you've ever seen those little lunch pails or any plastic container that has a lid with a plastic hinge, let's see if I can get it clear here. You'll see it's quite thin. I mean, look how thin that is right there. That's where we're putting all of our pressure. This thin little plastic piece that runs the length of the hinge back here. Well, does it really run? No, it really doesn't run the whole length. It's just up top and down here. So long-term durability, can't speak to that, but it definitely keeps the door locked, and there shouldn't be any fear of these doors opening. Now that's not the complaint. This is a long-term durability concern, but my complaint are all of these doors here in the galley. Now, if you have something heavy in any of these, they'll fly open while you're taking a corner, and there has to do something with the latch mechanism behind the drawer. Now, in my initial walkthrough of the Interstate, I told you that these beautiful knobs do absolutely nothing to actually lock the drawer in place. So when you push it, it's not doing anything other than get the knob out of the way. So I've started leaving them open because, again, it's not doing anything. And you'll see that this whole plastic piece, as you push, there's nothing popping out to lock anything. This whole housing is just really to house the spring mechanism for this. So if I were to take this drawer out, and let me actually get a light in there and we'll take a look. Let's see if we can see it. So behind the drawer, we've got some plumbing. All right, there it is. So if you see that black plastic latch, that latches onto another plastic piece on the back of the drawer, which you can see here. So unfortunately, they're not latching strong enough to keep the door from swinging open during a curve. So I'm putting some pressure on it now to unlatch it, and I think it requires about 5 to 8 pounds of pressure to open. So as I pull it, you'll see, you know, it's giving way and then it lets go. I need to look into whether or not they're adjustable. I've seen online where some folks have talked about Airstream not installing the drawers back into the correct cavities where they installed the latches in the back, which would make sense to me. If that was the case, then the latches were not aligning properly because the drawers are installed in the wrong cavity. The issue I have with that is that nearly none of these drawers are the same size. So it would be very hard to mess that up. These two bottom drawers here are the same size, so that could be a possibility that I could swap those out and see if they're any better. This drawer here, I believe, well, that might align with this drawer. So we'll give that a try and see if it makes any difference. So I took one of the top drawers out, and the top drawer that comes with the silverware tray is the same size drawer as the one directly beneath the microwave here. And I wanted to see if the latch on the back was movable or adjustable by way of loosening the screw and then, you can kind of see to the right of this screw where there's a little area for expansion, which means if I loosen both of these, then I could adjust this whole thing left or right, which may allow it to latch in a little bit better. I'm not having any issues with the silverware tray though, or the silverware drawer, but I am going to take, let me close this one. I'm going to take this one out. Now I've got some books in here. So the weight of these books, and one time I had a laptop in there, and the added 5-pound weight of the laptop made this fly open. And really, I mean, it's pretty loose. So I'm going to go ahead and take that drawer out and possibly look at adjusting the plastic bracket on the back. So adjusting this bracket was a bust because the 2 screws are already installed at their outermost limits, making it impossible to slide this bracket left or right. The other thing I noticed was that this drawer, which goes beneath the microwave, is not the same width as the silverware drawer. So there's no way that the Airstream factory could have accidentally put them in the wrong cavity. So I'm going to go ahead and put this drawer back beneath the microwave. So I'm going to call it quits for today on trying to figure out how to keep these drawers from sliding out when they have some weight in them turning corners. So if anyone has any suggestions, I would love to hear about it. Here in the wet bath, Airstream installs a chrome-plated shampoo and soap dispenser. It has 3 pumps on it, and it sticks out at least 3 to 4 inches from the wall, which is exactly where, when you're standing between this very tight space between the sink and the commode, you need this additional wall space for your elbow. So I've since removed it. I found these plastic plugs at Lowe's, added some bathroom silicone inside of the holes, and pushed the plugs in to keep that watertight while providing additional arm area for me to move around in. And then I relocated shampoos and soaps here with this 3M shelf that I installed in the back. Another item that I don't like about the design of the wet bath in the Airstream Interstate is the shower head and the ease of pulling the shower head out. Now, right now there's no concern, but beneath the sink, if you were to open that access panel, connected onto this hose was a weight. And that weight is intended to assist you with pushing this back in after you've pulled it out and used it. That weight helps pull the hose in on its own without you having to push it like I am right now. Well, the issue with that is that when you're in that access panel and you have a look, the other plumbing that's in there, the size of this weight, it's a gray piece of metal with a hole in the center, and the hose runs through the center. So imagine this weight is clamped with a screw around the hose. Well, as that's going up and down, as you pull it up and down, it's getting caught on the additional plumbing here beneath the sink. And so I went ahead and just removed it altogether. It was great that it assisted me with pulling it up and down, or pushing it down, I should say. And it was interesting, the Airstream has not changed that flaw since the 2015 unit that I rented prior to purchasing my 2017. The 2015 had the exact same issue, and the faucet was getting stuck, and I could not pull it up any further, because that's the other problem. As you pull it up and that weight gets caught, you have to be able to pull it up far enough to latch into the bracket so that you can stand there and take a shower. So now there's absolutely nothing impeding the hose coming out or being able to push the hose back in. You've got to use your hands to do it. But as you see, it's fairly easy to do so. Another area of concern in the Airstream Interstate is here on the magic suede that lines the sliding glass door. And why I say this is an area of concern is that you can see here and here and here these lines. And these lines are coming from the opening and closing of the door and how they're rubbing against the screen, but even more so, they're rubbing against the track along the side of the exterior of the van. And when you open it all the way, you're gonna see, if I can get in there. So when I push this all the way, if it's been raining outside or it's been dirty, the track right here for the sliding door, same thing down below, and right here in the middle where the van naturally pops out, any dirt on the exterior of your van is now going to leave a mark in those 3 places. So let's go ahead and close the door again, and you're going to see how you can see where it comes together and starts touching. So it gets really close right there, and then starts to move away. And then when we close it, you've got these lovely lines on your very white Magic Suede. So Magic Suede is fairly easy to clean. Now I have taken a microfiber cloth to this several times. I think I'm probably going to have to get some sort of chemical on it. I've got to check and see what I can use. You can see that fairly dark line there. And this is in a relatively very visible area in the van. So definitely an area of improvement for Airstream to make sure that either this is not as thick as it is, because if it wasn't so thick, it may not rub up against or the exterior, or simply attach some sort of laminate here on these panels instead to keep the dirt from getting on your Magic Suede. So I've been asked many times about the comfort of the rear sofa turning into a bed. And one item that I wanted to point out back here that I sense every time I sleep on it is the thickness of the bottom portion of the sofa where you sit compared to the back portion of the sofa where your back is generally against. And hopefully you can see here between the 3 surfaces, your feet and calves are usually down here. This is where your rear end is, and then your back is somewhere in between this cushion and this surface. But if you can tell, you're thicker here where your bottom is and where your lower back is, and then you transition to a lower plane. Even with a memory foam topper that I lay across all 3 of these, you can still tell that this portion of your body is slightly higher than down here. And again, I've left in comments several times, this is a sofa first, a bed second. If you're concerned at all with sleeping, I absolutely would recommend the twin bed layout. I selected the Grand Tour due to the overall floor plan as well as the storage capacity in the back when the sofa is lifted up that the twin bed version does not provide. But I definitely wanted to point out the fact that this is a little thicker, so your portion of your body here is going to be slightly elevated, so your upper back is a little lower, then you kind of go up, and then you go, this is fairly even right here. But for me, I'm a sensitive sleeper, and I can definitely tell that there is a difference between these cushions here. So I've talked about the Power sun screens and nightshades before, and I absolutely love them. They do a fantastic job. The only time I've run into an issue with these, there's been 2 times, and one time, let me put down one of the shades. So here's your sunscreen shade, and then you have your nightshade. The one issue I've experienced is that if these are lowered and you're sliding the door open and closed, these do have a tendency, as they're lower down on the track, let me see if I can demonstrate it. When they're lower on the track, they can pop out. Let me raise that one and try the sunscreen. So you may not be able to see the track back here, but there's just enough wiggle room left and right. So if you can imagine, I'm sliding the door left and right, that at some points along the track, it can very easily pop out. So if you've got this lowered maybe halfway and you're sliding the door open and closed, it could pop out of the track. It's easy to put back in the track, but that is one of the few times I've experienced any issues with these blinds. The only other time I experienced an issue with the blinds was when I was trying to lower all of the night shades, and this rear window just did not want to respond at all. Everything had lowered. This one did not want to lower, and I wound up waiting a few minutes, pushed the remote button again, and eventually it responded. So I don't know why it was not being responsive like the other ones were, but that's the only time I've ever had an issue with the lowering of the sunshade. A final item about the Airstream Interstate that really annoys me is how the Samsung televisions stick out into your main walkway. So as you're walking down, the TV protrudes just enough, and by just enough, it protrudes at least 6 inches, so that it really tends to get in the way. And I don't know what they could have done other than shrinking the size of the television to try to get it out of the way, but the fact that it sticks out into your main walkway 6 inches definitely can be a nuisance, especially when you have 2 people trying to walk around. You're constantly bumping into this. Now granted, you can release it, which allows you to swing it around and pivot it, but again, the flexibility of that is only but so much, and really all it's doing is just pulling it further into the space so that you're really not gaining any additional walkway here. And you'll see the front television, not nearly as bad, maybe a couple of inches. Definitely, I have never run into the edge of this TV, so I would not complain about that one nearly as much as the one back here in the back. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for me today with my review of items in the Airstream Interstate that I really wish they would have done differently or paid a little more attention to. As always, if you guys like this video, please comment, share, thumbs up, and let me know if there's anything about the Airstream Interstate that you'd like to learn more about or see more video of. Until the next time, take care.